to border security. I want to get your perspective here, sir, as someone who led a northern border state. How closely linked are these issues? Do you think this is an effective strategy, especially when it comes to Canada?
Well, it will depend on whether these tariffs are actually implemented or whether they're just being threatened as a negotiating ploy. As you know, all negotiations are about leverage, and threatening 100% or more tariffs gives a president a ton of leverage. And you already see Trudeau and the president of Mexico coming to Trump, trying to get some accommodation or concession. And so if they actually are imposed at that level, they'll be inflationary, no doubt about it. But I have a hunch that he's going to back off. There's going to be a lot of rhetoric. He's going to back off after getting some concessions from these countries' leaders about fentanyl, about illegal immigration, and other things.
Yeah, you brought up inflation, and we have to talk about it, because when it comes to the messaging on tariffs, a lot of people are still feeling the effects of inflation. They're a little worried about consumers and the industry and how much money they're going to spend going forward. So how does Trump flip the script there?
Now, that's a great point. And by the way, there was a report out the other day that to have a lifestyle that was the equivalent of making $70,000 or so before COVID, you'd have to make $100,000 or more now, just to sort of dramatize what inflation has meant to middle income American families. And so it'll be really interesting to see what President Trump does on these tariffs for that reason. But the other thing to keep an eye on, of course, is the Federal Reserve. And the Federal Reserve is battling inflation, trying to keep a lid on it and going in the right direction. But if President Trump puts somebody in as the next Federal Reserve chair who has a loose monetary policy when economic circumstances don't warrant it, that could easily reignite inflation, including if you add a bunch of tariffs to it.
Yeah, a lot of eyes on Wall Street right now. Let's look ahead to this week. Elon Musk, Vivek Ramaswamy, they're meeting with GOP lawmakers on Capitol Hill. They plan on discussing the Department of Government Efficiency. They've been tasked with leading it. I have to ask you, Governor, how critical is it for Congress, Musk, Ramaswamy, to be on the same page when it comes to cutting costs? Especially, they're predicting they're going to cut many, many jobs worth millions of dollars.
Yes, Elon Musk gave an interview earlier this week where he said $2 trillion. Now, keep in mind, the federal government spends about $7 trillion a year. But sometimes politicians talk about a budget number in a one-year context, and sometimes they talk about it over a 10-year context. So is that $2 trillion doable over a decade? Yes. Is it doable in 1 year? That would be really tough, even if you laid off almost every federal employee. So we'll see what he comes up with. But I don't underestimate Elon Musk. I think this is a federal government that is lethargic, that is bloated, that isn't accountable for results. And it's about time somebody came in and challenged them dramatically and boldly. And if he can make even some progress in that regard, it would be better than most other administrations in the modern history of the country.
As governor, you managed to successfully lower the deficit in your state. What advice do you have for both Musk and Ramaswamy?
Well, it helps to have a legislature or a Congress that's of your party. And keep in mind, the House is now Republican, the Senate is Republican, the president is Republican. So if they really want to do this, they have the ability to do it. But every one of these programs, and as you know, every one of these federal programs has some constituency, and even some Republicans somewhere are going to get wobbly when it comes to cutting the thing in their district or their state. So we'll see. But the cards are in place for them to play out a hand of government reduction if they have the fortitude to do it.
Well, we hope you come back to discuss. We'll be keeping an eye on this very closely. Former Minnesota Governor Tim Pawlenty. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.